Hey guys, it's Angel, and welcome, finally, to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. As you can probably tell from the deluge of content that's just dropped, our NDA is up, and I could finally tell you that I've had my hands on the brand new sim, courtesy of the wonderful people at Xbox. Whilst many of the creators out there are going to give you a more general overview, or perhaps focus on airliners or general aviation, my focus today is going to be what you expect from me. Bush and backcountry flying, dose of helicopters on the side. What else do you expect? The team at Xbox brought a group of creators out to the Grand Canyon in Arizona last week, and they gave us extensive presentations on the new features, physics, aircraft and capabilities of the new simulator. We got hands-on time with a test version of the sim, and we were able to sit down with the top guys from Microsoft and Asobo that helped make this sim a reality and ask them our questions. What I have to talk to you guys about is my takeaway from that event, and my thoughts of what 2024 is going to mean to us now I've actually played it. So one of the first things I want to talk to you about is this, the character customization system, because this is wild. This is flight sim, let's not forget. Not only can you pick from multiple presets, but you can choose your own character, male, female, the race, hair color, clothing, the facial details. This is not an RPG, this is a flight sim, and some of you may say this is irrelevant, but to me, this is an integral part of having our own identity in the sim. It's important because you get to fly as yourself, or anybody you want to be. And to me that is hugely awesome, and I'm super excited. This customizability though is a key part of what 2024 is going to be about. Not only is it about, of course, giving us a very realistic experience, but it's about giving us a modular experience. And I can't see it being long before we see asset packs released for even this. New clothes, new hairstyles. Oh god, please don't let the Sims 4 content end up in Flight Sim. I might... never mind. So not only do we get a plethora of aircraft with the new sim, including some wild stuff that we haven't had before, there's different versions to get now. Of course we have Standard, Deluxe, Premium Deluxe and Aviator. You'll see this here on the screen. 70 aircraft and 150 airports, to 80 and 155, 95, 160, and up to the new version Aviator. 125 and 60. Some of these are original aircraft from before, some of them are new, but all the ones from before are upgraded and updated. You'll see new features like the standard tablet in older aircraft. You'll see new functions and new behaviours in terms of what they can do. So that's going to be super exciting. But here's a cool part about this, is that now there's a lot more modularity built into how aircraft are put into the sim. So this means we'll see third-party developers hopefully embracing this functionality, because if you look at what we're going to be able to do with things like even the bog standard Cessna, or even a helicopter here. Features before that could be add-on or tweakable in-game functions or otherwise, or have multiple different versions loaded. Now, you can customize that within a single aircraft. Like here, we can choose passenger versions, G1000, standard, we can choose cargo, we can choose floats, skis, and these can all be built into this new menu system, which I think makes things much cleaner and much easier for you, the simmer, to get hold of what you actually want. Liveries, livery designs, all of this can now be built in within this system. This modularity is really going to be a huge part, and to me that's super exciting for going forwards. So my on-the-ground initial impressions of this simulator, playing it for the first time, are that we are dealing with a whole new beast compared to 2020. This is what 2020 wanted to be when it grew up. Now, from the walking around on foot features to just the basic features we're getting in standard new aircraft, like tablets in all aircraft, that electronic flight bag system is going to be coming to everything, new flight planning software, new tools to be able to fly our planes, even down to how the ground under our wheels behaves. Now that ground is a hugely important thing, because as I can see here, the ground data points now is hugely increased, so we have much more variety in our terrain. Rockier terrain is going to be bumpier, grass is more uneven, dirt will be more uneven, which means that we get not only more rugged terrain, so bush tyres will actually matter now and have an impact on how you actually fly the aircraft, and how soft those tyres are made in the aircraft's physics will have a huge part in that. But landing on this terrain in small tyres will no longer work in some contexts. You will dig in, you might flip over, you might get stuck. These things could all happen, and now also snow can deform, sand can form. We'll see that in a moment actually in this clip as we land on the sandbar. Now, I realise I sound super enthusiastic about this, and I want to make a big caveat here, because I used a test version of the new sim. There are bugs, there are errors, and there are things that are wrong with it. And we're also miles from a really good internet connection on a very heavily connection-based sim. Now, that meant that I did not see the full potential, but what I could see was what it was going to be. What I could see was what they were doing with it, and I could feel the nuances of what they were trying to achieve, and they were achieving it. Obviously, bugs happen. This is a test version, and that's to be expected. Completely understandable. But the direction these things were going in, to me, is what excited me. I'm a skeptical person, but I was genuinely impressed by what I saw. The sim ran smooth. The sim ran very well. The scope of the simulator was quite broad. What I could see was very, very good. I had limited access, but it was really a better built version of what we had. My favourite part of this clip I'm showing you here, of course, is landing on this sandbar. And it seems like a really simple thing, but this sand deformed. And if you look at when we go in third person in a moment, you'll see my tyres sank into this surface, which would happen with a bush plane. With this weight, and maybe not quite as much, but either way, it's a really cool feature this happens. And it adds a lot of friction to the aircraft, meaning when I tried to start moving, it was really sluggish because I had to tractor this thing around in soft sand. And it didn't want to turn. And notice out the window here, there's sand. Look at the surface deformation on that sand there, or even that. And when I turn around to go take off again, I crash in a second because I can't build as much speed because I'm on a very soft surface. And the plane just can't build speed past that friction. Look at the window there. You can see the ruts I've just dug into the surface. It'd be like landing in mud. Like, these surfaces just aren't what the plane wants to play with. How neat is this? Bonk. Now, this is something I really wanted to kind of take a serious look at. This is the CL-415 that's going to be included in the base game. Now, this aircraft, of course, is a firefighter, but it's also a float plane, or a seaplane specifically, because it lands on its hull. Now, I'm noticing here on the takeoff that it's quite smooth, because waves now are built differently in this sim. Waves are now dynamic. They react specifically to the wind in their height, their amplitude, and their behavior. And this red guy, ignore him, he's a meme. It's an error of pilot character creation. It was something we had during this. It was a bug. Bugs happen. But this plane, it takes off very well. It performs great. And the sounds are pretty good, in fact. Now, this still brings back to me the nuance and difference between seaplanes and float planes. Float planes sit on floats. Seaplanes land on their hull like this. Now, we had Big Radial's Goose. Very good in 2020, no skipping. The skipping bug, of course, from 2020, or behavior, does still seem to be there on unmodified aircraft. Default 172, for example. That could be how it's made. Now, there are more data points available, which means that developers, and this is what I've been told by one specific developer who has back-end access to the new sim, they have way more access to data points now for things like float points, so we should see more accurate float plane flying. That will be huge. Maybe not the default 172, but it means with add-on aircraft we will hopefully see that, which means modders can improve them too. So this could be the era of float flying in the sim, especially now that you will have to pay attention to the waves on the water. Even just coming in like this, bringing this thing down, I turn into port in a second and bring her in for a landing. It is smooth, it is well behaved, and this big beast is a joy to fly. I look forward to doing this in missions and actually scooping water. You can do that. I did not test it out, of course, during this flying. But you know what? I wanted to take a minute here just to show you some uncut footage of me flying around in this thing and really how it behaves in the sim. I'm not going to show you the 172. It was skipping, and it basically looks like the standard one we have now. But I know that will change. That is a big thing I spoke to Brandon, aka Jonks from Got Friends about, who is one of the developers who was there, along with the guys from Working Title, was about how the new world is working with this. I talked to Sebastian from the Sobo. He was also saying that the way they've changed the actual physics points now is a big part of this. There is a far bigger resolution to data points for both terrain, for water, for air movement. So This also couples to how we have way more aircraft data points. Every flight model now is about, I think that they said to me, no, don't quote me on this, 4,000 times more sensitive in terms of what data points we have access to. This means there is way more scope to make a far more accurate flight model with a far more accurate world. We should see a real mesh here of a difference between that. And I did specifically ask the guys from Asobo about, and this is a Sebastian vlog from Asobo, I did specifically ask about the differences we see between lakes data points and river data points and terrain data points. Will we see floating valleys and floating rivers, or rivers on plateaus, lakes on plateaus in 2024? We might, but they actively work to fix those. That is something they're actively taking care of, and they do actively correct and are working on, and will hopefully be improving in 2024 over 2020. You see here, super smooth landing. I really like that, especially putting it into beta there. She just slowed down nicely on the water surface, and her response between the hull and actually getting control of my wings and being able to move off those two wingtip floats onto the main hull itself, as you'll see again here, it really responded to quite well. You'll notice how I can just tip her back up onto the main hull, nice and smooth, no real kick. Particle effects are quite lovely, in fact, and she just behaves exactly. Look at this peel off, no skipping at all, just comes straight off the water. Beautiful. This is what I want to see. That is really big to me. Now, as many of you know, helicopters have become a pet love of mine in recent times, and this is one of the landing challenges, or challenge events, which is landing here, precision job, on the lighthouse in front of us. Now, as we talked about with water, these waves are telling me the wind direction. It's about 030. I believe in the test requirements, it's about 20 odd knots. So it's not particularly calm. Now, I'm flying this on the Asobo in-house Eurocopter 125 here, or the AS350, depending on how you know the aircraft. Single engine turbine helicopter. Now, as you can see, my head's not moving around. I did not have head tracking for my testing. I was using hat switch, which was awkwardly on the right-hand side of the yoke. But that's just a whatever, setup of controls. Now, I was using Thrustmaster's controls for all my testing in the sim here in 2024. I don't use their stuff. Normally, I use Honeycomb. So it was my first time on the controls. I want to say that because the controls are amazing, both build quality and use in the sim. I was using the Boeing yoke and throttle quadrant, which I'm used to flying helicopters with yoke and throttle quadrant, but it's normally the Honeycomb. So I was unfamiliar, but the quality of those is really lovely. And one thing I took away from the event, actually, is Thrustmaster's pendular rudder pedals. My gosh, those are lovely. Absolutely love those things. I still use ancient Cytec Pro Flight pedals, which are so creaky and worn out, it's not even funny, but they still work, so I haven't replaced them yet. But I might be looking at those, because they are incredible. But as you can see here, using that wind direction, using the waves to tell me where the wind is coming from, you can see the white caps there telling me it's quite a strong wind at times. But the helicopter feel with the data points in terms of how they've changed flight models is really nice, because it's a lot smoother. It's nowhere near as jerky as it used to be. The kind of input of my collective and cyclic controls here, my actual rotor trim inputs are much cleaner. I feel like I'm way more capable of controlling this aircraft in a predictable way that a helicopter should. And as we come over the pad here, even though it's a mesh one to allow air to come through it and my downdraft to go through it, you'll notice a bit of a change in how the aircraft's behaving slightly. I'm having to drop, collective down here to kind of not bounce up again. I'm bouncing there as it kind of picks up some of the airflow. I'm a bit to the left for the thing to pick me up as landed, but I do move to the right in a second, and I'm pretty sure this is going to show a different person's name on the actual settings. I had to switch PCs halfway through this, and the creator whose machine I was on wasn't at the event, so shout out to you, but I may or may not have beaten Sergio's score from Helisimmer. Am I doing the victory lap on that one? I absolutely am doing a victory lap on that one. But hey, that's beside the point. And hey, shout out to Red Dude again. He's back. I love him, actually. Hey, bugs are bugs. They happen. But that was me. In fact, no, it was actually me. Yay, me. So career, challenge, and photo mode. These are three of the biggest changes coming to the sim, and they're going to be huge for you. Now, challenge mode we're already familiar with. It's landing challenges, different skill-based events to compete in and try to get the best score. This is something we have now in a way, and it's a really fun way to prove your abilities. Now, photo mode's a bit different. This is incredibly relaxing, and you, the pilot, get goals to complete that require you to go to various parts of the world and take pictures. There could be objects, locations, flora or fauna, and they may require various times of the day or year. Really, it helps you to explore our big, beautiful planet and use our sim in a totally different way. Those of you flying airliners might enjoy some peace and quiet for once, eh? Now, career mode is the most exciting to me and arguably the biggest new feature of all. While third-party companies make career add-ons currently that work to varying extents, this is now a core element in the sim that will build from the ground up. You. You can now start a career anywhere, pass your ratings, earn your licenses, and start flying. You can complete jobs, do work, earn money, buy planes, and build a company. To bush pilots, this is absolute gold. Why? You can do it anywhere and in any plane. This can let you live out your dream of flying backcountry cargo jobs, rescue missions, and resupply anywhere in the world. I can start my little company on Campbell Island, and it can be my company. Now, an obvious question really in this is, what will this mean to third-party add-ons that currently are offered? Well, I suspect they'll need to adapt. This does a very similar job, and arguably in a better way. Now it's going to be an integral component to the sim. The biggest market I see here is to see developers bringing different add-ons, approaches, and angles to their products to compete. And while not a thing yet, it won't be beyond the scope of the sim to have mission and job add-ons, different voice packs, different abilities to adapt and improve on what exists. Will we see new packs? Absolutely. Now, I did get a chance to sit down with Jörg Neumann and have a great chat about the sim. You'll hear more about that later. But in this case, we did talk about the ethics in terms of career mode and how it might relate to that system. Will we see missions in conflict zones? Will we see illegal activity like smuggling? The answer, officially, from Microsoft and Asobo is no, not from them. But can a third-party developer bring you a career as Pablo's #1 grocery delivery pilot? Yes, they can. To me, this offers a really exciting new frontier in the sim for us to explore. Purpose. Purpose is often something we have to find ourselves in flight sim, whether it be imaginary missions, whether it be going somewhere we'd like to see, whether it be a career add-on or a virtual airline. But now, that freedom is supplemented, and I'm excited to see what we do with it, and what the development community does with it. That, to me, is the biggest part. What will the third-party world bring to this very new ability? During the preview event, I was given the opportunity to sit down with a couple of people from Asobo, Microsoft, and some third-party developers. These included David Dedin, Sebastian Vloch, both of Asobo Studios, Jörg Neumann, head of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and Chris Burnett of Working Title and Brandon Yeager of Got Friends. Now, whilst I hope to do something more extensive with these chats at a later date, watch this space, my biggest takeaway from this was the passion for this simulator. This is not a AAA title that's been put out and released and kicked across the goal line. These people all have a serious love for this simulator and its future. Not only are we seeing a roadmap similar to 2020's release, where we will expect sim updates and world updates to 2024, but the modularity and compatibility of it is going to be a huge factor. One thing that Chris Burnett told me was that the EFB you see in these aircraft is its own system written by Asobo. Working Title wrote some of the apps in there. Third-party developers can write apps for this electronic flight bag. You, as a third-party developer, can take this electronic flight bag 3D model asset with operating system and plug it straight into your 2020 aircraft and bring it into the 2024 sim. You could even write your own little apps for this electronic flight bag to control things in your third-party aircraft. In terms of compatibility and modularity, that is one tiny but very, very vital aspect. This sim is designed to give the maximum tools to our developers. Now, the guys at Working Title and Got Friends are partners with Asobo. They're not beholden to them or working for them, they're working with them. This means access to people like Mike Patey of course, the Draco X. This means access to people like Boeing's chief pilot of the Dreamlifter. This is giving unparalleled access to these developers and, of course, more resources to other developers working with Asobo, and there are many, many more developers working with Asobo and Microsoft on this. that we have a growing access to the resources of the real-world aviation field, meaning this simulator gets more and more realistic. The potential for growth in this sim is huge. This is day one, and day one is looking incredible. Anyone who thought 2024 was going to be a simple polished job on 2020 is right and wrong. It's giving us very similar to what we had, but dialed up to 11. Everything it wanted to be when it grew up for 2020 is going to be happening in 2024 times 1,000. Whether it's data resolution, whether it's detail of air movement, detail of ground surface, whether it's simple back-end systems operations, this sim is more detailed in every way it could possibly be. But it runs better. All the footage I recorded in this sim that was not stock B-roll that I got hold of from Microsoft was on a computer 60 miles from a great internet connection. And for a very connection-heavy sim, this is doing very well. More has been pushed to the cloud, and more has been pushed to data processing sides to enable your computer to run this sim better. It ran incredibly well on a fairly normal range system. Now, on my own system, on my own connection, I expect incredible things, because my specs outweigh what I was testing on. Now, of course, only having seen a test copy of the sim, I can't tell you for certain what the finished product will be like. But if it's anything improved on what we had, I expect it to be very, very good. It will be a massive day one purchase for myself, categorically. I cannot wait. And I honestly, even the resources that have been ported to this so far, outstrip anything we've seen in a flight sim in the past. This sim is designed to go forwards, not stay still. This is not a single product. It's a field. It's a market. It is a ecosystem. This will go forwards in terms of what we have as a simulator, and of all sims, off the ground, this already appeals to bush pilots and backcountry pilots more than anybody else. You, the GA pilot, the bush pilot, the glider pilot, the helicopter pilot. This is our time. We've never had it this good, and it's only going to get better. These are my preferred types of flying, and I am incredibly excited. We have a world that responds to us finally, not just when we pass through, and that's going to be the biggest part for me. So what are my conclusions? Well, I didn't have a lot of testing time, perhaps an hour and a half tops. And there were some glitches, but glitches happen during testing. That's completely fine. What I could see, and what I saw during the presentation they gave us, was incredible. This new sim is a whole different world. Their plans are far-ranging and exciting. They have a passion for what we do too, and they want to make the same simulator that we want to enjoy. Whether you fly airliners, whether you fly on VATSIM, whether you fly bush planes, general aviation, gliders or stunt planes, whether you fly warbirds or ultralights, or just want to see the world, this will have something for everybody. And the scope that I can see as someone who's done development work is breathtaking. Granted, I worked in FSX times, but what you can do to this simulator as a developer is just out of this world. I hope to have some more content in more detail on specific elements of 2024 over the next couple of weeks, but these are my first impressions. This is what I do. This is my first impression. And my first impression is it's good. It's not just good, it's great. And I'm not just saying that because they took me to the Grand Canyon. It was really hot. I don't like really hot. But the sim was amazing. In fact, you could say it was cool. And with that, I'll get my coat. Thanks for watching, dear reader, dear listener, dear viewer. You're all three of them. Bye.